talk a little bit about Japanese economy. You know, it has taken its toll in the last 3 years. So they did a survey, and where do you think they went to get the survey done? Is the households in Japan, particularly to the wife or to the woman who conducts the entire household expenses. She's the one who keeps the budget book, and it's called Kakibo. And she's the one who actually saves money for a rainy day, doesn't tell her husband, and that's called hasokuri. According to them, they have suffered 18% decline in the savings. Well, but more than the family household, the men are really suffering the pain. And you ask me why.
Why?
You know, men in Japan actually get pocket money, they call allowance, from their wives. Men in Japan, they smoke a lot, they drink a lot, and they do other things, go visit geisha. So they are given an allowance. Now, the allowance today they're getting is less than what they were getting in 1982.
Wow.
$15 a day, $452 a month. You've been to Japan. Tell me, can they have a good time?
Honestly, I don't know how you get by with $15 a day in Japan. It is such an expensive place to live. And the reality is they've gone through quite a bit as a nation, right? Not just recently with the tsunami and the reactor, but they've been in a prolonged recession. And so I think this mindset of saving and hoarding is just natural and instinctive now to the Japanese household. They've taken it to a science, actually, where I guess the women are just very regimented. They keep the books, and they've got their men on, looks like a very short financial leash. But it's a practical reality to their life and their lifestyle. And because it is such an expensive nation to live, you have to pinch the pennies.
But do we have the same thing here in the United States?
I think we do.
I don't know if the immigrant families are the places where women are in charge, or is it all over the United States?
I think, honestly, that trend exists across the globe. I don't think that it's isolated to one nation, but I do think that certain cultures, it's more of an emphasis. You know, telling the story, I'm thinking of my own household growing up with my mom. My mom certainly handled the finances, and that's probably true for many of us. If you ask them in your household growing up who managed the finances, a lot of them will say women. Their moms did.
My mother did too.
Exactly.
You know.
Folks, I read a wonderful story in the Washington Post. This one hit close to home for me because this was the scene in which I grew up. The headline of the article was Indian Music Finds Its Niche in Washington Area with Intimate House Concerts. Now, they talked about this scene happening in the D.C. area, but the reality is this happens across all of our Indian communities. It happens in New York, Chicago, L.A. These house concerts are a popular phenomena. And this actually focused on the very positive aspects because, you know, we do this sort of under the wraps. We don't make a big production. These are not performances held in stages and in theaters. They're very intimate in people's basements and in their houses.
These are not superstars. These are stars, yes. They're good singers. I mean, I've been to few of them. They're phenomenal singers.
These are artists from India. A lot of them are the creme de la creme artists. But the reality is when you travel outside of your borders to other countries, it's hard to fill a hall. But you know what? You can fill somebody's basement. And the reality is many of us who have done well in the community have enormous houses with enormous basements now.
Yes.
And actually, it's becoming a setup. You know, week after week, there's a season of concerts. People have them at different people's houses. There's food, there's gathering. And people have built these basements and backyards to accommodate these concerts, specifically with big, elaborate sound systems and so forth. So this was covered locally here in the area. And, you know, I have to tell you, growing up, being in the music community, my mom frequently not just attended, but she participated in these. She either accompanied the artists or she was there in some fashion to organize. For me, it set such a strong ethic of music and culture for me growing up that, you know, I look forward to this scene continuing to the point where if I ever have kids, I will do the same thing as a way to build that that cultural influence. And it happens here. And it's a glowing article, and it highlights our community in the ways that we do good through these small, gentle means.
And I am sure it is prevalent among all immigrant communities.
I think so, too. They just happened to pick this area, but I love the article, and I'm glad they decided to cover it.
You know, the economy, the only place it's good is in China. Chinese are making money hand over fist. They have more millionaires today. They're like number 3, you know, from U.S. to Europe, and now next is in line is China. And these guys are buying properties all over the world, for a number of different reasons. Number one, they may want their children to have better education. They're buying apartments in London. London is known to have a lot of good educational properties. They want to go to Hawaii, beautiful island, fantastic weather. They want to go to Las Vegas, all that glitz and gambling too. They are buying properties in Florida. Everywhere Chinese are going, not only for education purposes, but sometimes just to give birth to a baby, because, China has a one-child policy. So if they give birth in another country, they have two advantages. They can take the citizenship for their child in that country, or they can send their child for education. So Chinese are exporting themselves out on the world stage, and they are buying properties all over the world. And you know what? The American properties up in Florida and Nevada, they're being taken over a lot by the Chinese and South Americans, who are, again, they're the newly rich. And they're also coming in for the same purposes. So our childbirth rate is not going down anytime soon.
I think this trend is here to stay. I don't see how you can stop this. I mean, even if you put in immigration laws into effect, these are people who are allowed to purchase property outside of their home country. So maybe the U.S. needs to look at its policies for allowing home ownership by foreign nationals, if that's the case.
They already have allowed that if you're born here, you're a citizen automatically, and which is what the Congress right now debating whether that law should be on the books or not, But this is in other countries as well. China is like everywhere, not only in America.
You know what I think? I think we should start buying up property in China. Because if they're all leaving, and there's lots of good homes available there, then we might...
It's way too expensive. It's way too expensive.
Well, a new survey out that looked at 21 developed and emerging nations by the global firm Nielsen came back with a pretty astounding discovery. Indian women are the world's most stressed, according to this survey that came out. And it's staggering, folks. 87% of Indian women said they felt stressed most of the time, and 82% had no time to relax. And in comparison, if you look at other countries, Mexican women